Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome back to Good Old Tech, GOT. Today I'm going to talk about two different devices, iPad mini and the Surface Duo 2, and how they compare when it comes to web browsing. So with this comparison, you're going to see, we compare the Apple iPad mini 6 versus the Microsoft Duo 2. Why am I comparing these two devices? Because we just so happen to own both these devices. I use the Microsoft Duo 2 as my daily driver, whereas my wife, she uses the Apple iPad mini as her daily driver, along with her iPhone and her Apple Watch. She enjoys browsing the web and playing games on her iPad mini. I, on the other hand, use the Microsoft Surface Duo 2 as my daily driver because it is a phone, and I also use it to enjoy browsing the web as a tablet. Comparing the two, there are some really major big differences between the two. And the reason why I'm doing this comparison is because I went on the internet and I could not find any comparison between these two devices. Probably because they're not really that compatible, one being a phone and one being a tablet only. Now, I'm not going to get into all the specs between the two devices because you can look for that everywhere else, but specifically you can see that they are both the same size as far as the screen goes. Surface Duo is actually an AMOLED screen, and you can see it is 8.3, and the Apple iPad mini is an LED screen. The difference between the two you can see in the rich blacks on the AMOLED screen. I did have to dim the Surface Duo a little bit because it was too bright in comparing it with the iPad mini. iPad mini is at its full brightness right now. So as you can imagine, the Surface Duo 2 is a little bit more visible outside in the sunlight. So immediately, what are some of the differences between the two devices that you can see? Well, the Surface Duo is a split screen. It's actually two separate screens. These screens work independently of each other. You can use two separate apps at the same time, where the iPad mini is one screen, which is fine. Most people enjoy just using one screen at a time because that's what you're used to with a tablet. Now, I would venture to say most people don't utilize it, but on the iPad mini, you can use two screens at the same time, and it's fairly simple to do. Here, I do have two sites opened up at the same time. iPad mini, if you hold and press the second tab that is open, and just slide it down next to the other tab, you actually get two tabs opened in the browser. Now, although you are using one browser on the iPad mini, you can still operate them independently. Now we compared both devices very similarly. They both have two screens operating at the same time. Notice that this time the visibility of the websites on both, believe it or not, they are both using the mobile sites and their native browser. On the iPad mini, it's using Apple Safari, and on the Surface Duo, Microsoft Edge. Now you can see between the two of them, they both work really well. However, on the iPad mini, when reading the websites, they actually come out fairly small. I had that one zoomed in, actually, so if you look at them natively, even though they're both on the mobile sites, iPad mini is a little harder to view, where the Surface Duo 2 zooms in automatic using the mobile sites. So you actually get to see exactly what you want to see, and it comes into good view. So you can see when you're browsing through the Surface Duo 2, all the content stays in good visible view, the font size, and it stays within contacts and confines of the screen. Nothing is expanding past the screen. You don't have to do any side views or anything. It all sits within your view window. Now when you go to the iPad mini, it's a little bit different story. This is in mobile view in the iPad mini. However, it shrinks it down to try to get you to see the full page, which makes it a little harder to read. You can double tap to expand it to make it in more view, but then you lose part of the page and you have to go back and forth to really see what you're looking at. In other words, you can see on the Surface Duo, it gives you the headers, tells you what information you look at. On the iPad mini, you gotta shift a little bit to see what field or area you're looking at in the specs. I'm not quite sure why the iPad does it this way, but it just seems to be set up in the hardware or software. On the Surface Duo 2, you can switch over to desktop site, and then you can pinch and zoom just like you do on the iPad. Now similarly on both devices, if you're shopping, you can click on a link, go to another page, and then go right back to the previous page simply by swiping from the side of the device. You can see that the iPad went straight back to the previous page. Now here on the Surface Duo 2, you can do something similar. You go to another page, and I'll just go to the home page here. Same thing, and then if you want to go back, you can just swipe from the side and it'll go back. Now here's where they're different. If you go on the right side and you go to another page on the iPad mini, and then let's say you want to go back to the previous page, but you're on the second screen or the right side on the iPad mini. If you try and swipe to go back, there's no swipe motion. You can't do it. You have to hit the exact center to get it to go back, just as if you were swiping back from the left. And it can be difficult sometimes with that exact center. And if you look, go back again to the previous page, but then going back, sometimes it's difficult hitting that line exactly the way you need to. Now on the Surface Duo, on the other hand, it's quite a bit different. You just go to another page and just naturally swipe back, and it goes back to the previous page. And you can do that from the outer side of the screen. And it just seems so natural that way. Now the interesting thing is, if you go to another page and you try to do it from the center, it doesn't do it. Because you've got this big thick line in the center, it just naturally want to swipe it back from the right. Whereas on the iPad mini, it does not allow you to go back from the right side, but there is another way to do it, and you can just use the back arrow here at the top. So as you can see, they both work similarly, but there are some obvious differences. On the Surface Duo, when you have two screens, you work both browsers independently, and on the iPad mini, it's one browser split in two, and they work similarly. Thank you for visiting the channel today, listening to the differences between the iPad mini and the Surface Duo. If you like the content today, please subscribe and like this video, and we will be happy to provide more videos down the road and comparisons of different devices. Again, we thank you for visiting us today, and as always, if you haven't already, you've got to try it.